Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the golden rays of morning sunlight danced between the ancient oak trees, their branches framing the entrance to Westbrook Academy, a solitary vehicle approached with purpose. Its sleek contours glistened in the light, drawing attention to the polished exterior of the black sedan. Inside, Dawson Mitchell sat deep in thought, his journey nearing its end. With a final rumble, the car gracefully came to a halt before the estate's gates, which loomed large, their intricate ironwork reflecting the grandeur of what lay beyond. With a sense of growing anticipation, Dawson exited the vehicle, his eyes adjusting to the outdoors. He tugged at his brown hair, disheveled after hours on the road. The crispness of the autumn breeze brought a sense of clarity as he stood at the threshold of his new academic life. He'd worked tirelessly to earn this transfer scholarship, and now that he was here, the reality of it all was starting to sink in. Pushing open the heavy wooden doors, Dawson found himself in a hushed foyer with gleaming marble floors and wood-paneled walls adorned with oil paintings of stern-looking men in academic robes. He approached the reception desk, where a prim woman with graying hair sat typing away at a computer.
"Excuse me," Dawson said, clearing his throat. "I'm here to check in. I'm a new transfer student."
The woman looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly as she scrutinized him over the rim of her glasses. "Name?" "Dawson Mitchell." She tapped a few keys on her keyboard, then nodded. "Ah, yes. Mr. Mitchell. We've been expecting you." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. "Here's your welcome packet. It contains your class schedule, room assignment, and other important information about life at Westbrook Academy." Dawson accepted the envelope with a murmured thanks, but as he turned to leave, the receptionist called out to him. "Oh, and Mr. Mitchell? Make sure you read the packet thoroughly. There have been some changes to our academic program this year. You'll want to familiarize yourself with the new policies." Puzzled by her cryptic tone, Dawson nodded and made his way out of the building. He found a bench beneath a sprawling elm tree and sat down to examine the contents of the envelope. As he flipped through the glossy brochures and official-looking documents, his eyes widened in disbelief. There, in black and white, was an explanation of Westbrook Academy's new Gender Fluidity Initiative. The school was undertaking a bold social experiment, requiring all male students to spend alternate semesters presenting as female. The stated goal was to promote empathy, challenge societal norms, and prepare students for a more inclusive future. Dawson's mind reeled. This couldn't be real, could it? He scanned the document again, taking in phrases like mandatory participation and full immersion experience. His heart began to race as he realized what this meant for him. In just a few short weeks, he would be expected to transform himself into a female student, complete with a new name, new clothes, and a new identity. The packet even included a list of approved feminine names for students to choose from. As Dawson sat there, trying to process this shocking information, a shadow fell across the bench. He looked up to see a tall, athletic-looking guy with a friendly smile.
"Hey there,"
the newcomer said.
"You look a little shell-shocked. Let me guess. You just found out about the GFI?"
Dawson nodded mutely, still unable to find his voice. The other student chuckled and extended his hand.
"I'm Connor. I went through the same thing last year when they first introduced the program. Trust me, it's not as bad as it seems at first."
Dawson shook Connor's hand, finally finding his voice.
"I'm Dawson, and I'm sorry, but how is this not as bad as it seems? They want us to become girls for half the year."
Connor sat down next to Dawson, his expression turning more serious. Look, I know it's a lot to take in, but hear me out. This program, it changes you in ways you can't imagine. It opens your eyes to a whole different perspective on the world. And the friendships you form, they're deeper than anything I've ever experienced before. Dawson listened, still skeptical but intrigued by Connor's earnestness. But how does it even work? I mean, I don't know the first thing about being a girl. That's where the mentorship program comes in, Connor explained.
You'll be paired with a senior who's been through the program before. They'll guide you through everything. Makeup, clothes, mannerisms, the whole 9 yards. And the school provides everything you need, from uniforms to, well, other necessities.
As Connor continued to explain the ins and outs of the program, Dawson found his initial panic slowly subsiding. It was still overwhelming, but hearing about it from someone who'd been through it made it seem less daunting.
So,
Connor said, glancing at Dawson's packet.
Have you thought about what name you'll choose?
Dawson shook his head.
I haven't even had time to look at the list. Well, take your time. It's an important decision. You'll be living with that name for half the year after all.
As the weeks passed, Dawson threw himself into his studies, trying to distract himself from the looming transformation. But as the end of the semester approached, he knew he couldn't put it off any longer. He'd chosen the name Valentina, inspired by a character in one of his favorite books. The night before the transition, Dawson lay awake in his dorm room, staring at the ceiling. His stomach churned with a mixture of anxiety and a strange, unexpected excitement. Tomorrow, he would become Valentina. The transformation process was more involved than Dawson had imagined. He spent hours with his mentor, a senior named Olivia, learning the basics of makeup application, hairstyling, and feminine mannerisms. The school provided everything, from the burgundy blazers and gray skirts of the girls' uniform to the necessary undergarments. As Dawson stood in front of the full-length mirror in the transformation center, he hardly recognized himself. His brown hair had been styled into soft waves that framed his face, subtle makeup enhancing his features. The burgundy blazer hugged his waist, creating the illusion of curves where there were none before. The gray skirt fell just above his knees, and on his feet were a pair of shiny black Mary Janes. "Well?" Olivia asked, standing behind him with a proud smile. "What do you think, Valentina?" Dawson, no, Valentina, turned from side to side, taking in her new appearance. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice soft with wonder. "Is that really me?" Olivia squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "It sure is. And you look beautiful, Val. Ready to face the world?" Valentina took a deep breath, smoothing down her skirt nervously. "As ready as I'll ever be, I guess." The first few days of the new semester were a whirlwind of new experiences for Valentina. She had to relearn how to walk in her Mary Janes, how to sit properly in a skirt, and how to modulate her voice to sound more feminine. But with each passing day, these actions became more natural, less forced. In her classes, Valentina was surprised to find that her professors and classmates treated her no differently than before. If anything, some of her male classmates who hadn't yet gone through their own transformations seemed to regard her with a mix of curiosity and respect. It was during lunch one day, about a week into the semester, that Valentina had her first real test. She was making her way across the crowded cafeteria, tray in hand, when she tripped over someone's outstretched foot. She stumbled, her tray clattering to the ground as she braced herself for impact. But the fall never came. Instead, She felt a strong arm wrap around her waist, steadying her. Valentina looked up to see Connor, his face etched with concern.
"Whoa there,"
he said, helping her regain her balance. "You okay, Val?" Valentina nodded, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just clumsy, I guess." Connor shot a glare at the table where the offending foot had come from. A group of first-year students who hadn't yet gone through their own transformations sat there, snickering.
"Hey!"
Connor called out, his voice stern.
"Not cool, guys. Remember, you'll be in her shoes next semester."
The laughter died down, replaced by sheepish looks and mumbled apologies. Connor turned back to Valentina with a reassuring smile.
"Don't let them get to you. Come on, you can sit with us."
He led her to a table where several other students sat, all of them currently presenting as female. Valentina recognized a few faces from her classes, but she'd been too shy to approach them before.
"Everyone, this is Valentina,"
Connor introduced her.
"She's new to the program, so let's make her feel welcome."
The group greeted her warmly, making space for her to sit. As Valentina settled in, she found herself drawn into their conversation, discussing everything from classes to the latest campus gossip. For the first time since her transformation, she felt truly at ease. As the weeks passed, Valentina found herself settling into her new identity with surprising comfort. She formed close friendships with her fellow transformed students, bonding over shared experiences and challenges. They would spend hours in each other's dorm rooms, practicing makeup techniques, trying on outfits, and discussing the unique perspectives they were gaining. One evening, as Valentina was studying in the library, she overheard a heated conversation from the next aisle over. Peering through the gaps in the bookshelves, she saw two male students engaged in a hushed argument.
"I'm telling you, man, I can't do it,"
one of them was saying, his voice tight with anxiety. "I can't become a girl next semester. It's not me. I'll transfer out if I have to." The other student sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I get it. I felt the same way last year. But trust me, it's not as bad as you think. It's actually kind of liberating." Valentina found herself moving before she could think better of it. She rounded the corner, coming face to face with the two surprised students. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I couldn't help overhearing. Can I offer some perspective?" The anxious student eyed her warily, but nodded. Valentina took a deep breath and began to speak, surprised by the passion in her own voice.
"A few months ago, I was exactly where you are now. Terrified, confused, ready to run. But this experience, it's opened my eyes in ways I never expected. It's not just about wearing different clothes or makeup. It's about understanding a completely different way of moving through the world. The challenges, the perspectives, the unspoken rules we never even realize exist until we're on the other side of them." She paused, noticing that other students in the library had stopped to listen. "But more than that, it's about empathy. Real, deep empathy that goes beyond just imagining what someone else's life is like. We're living it, and that understanding, it's going to make us better people, better leaders, better humans." The anxious student looked thoughtful, his earlier panic seeming to subside. I never thought about it like that," he admitted. Valentina smiled encouragingly. "Give it a chance. You might surprise yourself." As she turned to go back to her studying, she caught Connor's eye from across the room. He gave her a thumbs up and a proud smile, mouthing the words, "Well said." That night, as Valentina got ready for bed, she found herself reflecting on how much she'd changed in just a few short months.
It wasn't just the physical transformation, though that was significant enough. It was the way she thought, the way she interacted with others, the way she saw the world around her. She picked up her phone, scrolling through photos from before her transformation. The Dawson in those pictures seemed like a stranger now, someone she used to know but had grown apart from. And yet, she knew that Dawson was still a part of her, just as Valentina would always be a part of Dawson. As the semester progressed, Valentina found herself taking on leadership roles she never would have considered before. She became a mentor to incoming students, helping them navigate their own transformations with compassion and understanding. She joined the student council, advocating for policies that would make the campus more inclusive and supportive of all students, regardless of how they were presenting at any given time. One day, as she was leaving a student council meeting, she ran into Professor Harrington, the Dean of Students and the architect of the Gender Fluidity Initiative. "Ah, Valentina," the professor said with a warm smile. "I have been hearing wonderful things about you. How are you finding your experience here at Westbrook?" Valentina straightened her burgundy blazer, meeting the professor's gaze confidently. "It's been eye-opening, Professor. Challenging at times, but incredibly rewarding." Professor Harrington nodded, a thoughtful expression on her face. "I'm glad to hear it. You know, when we first proposed this program, there was a lot of skepticism. Many thought it was too radical, too disruptive. But stories like yours, they're proving that this experiment has value beyond what we ever imagined." Valentina felt a surge of pride at the professor's words. "It's changing lives," she agreed. "Not just ours, but the lives of everyone we'll interact with in the future. We are learning to see the world from multiple perspectives, to challenge our own assumptions. It's powerful stuff." The professor's eyes twinkled with approval. "Indeed it is. Keep up the good work, Valentina. Students like you are the reason this program exists." As the end of the semester approached, bringing with it the impending transformation back to Dawson, Valentina found herself experiencing a complex mix of emotions. Part of her was excited to reclaim her male identity, to slip back into the comfortable familiarity of being Dawson. But another part, a larger part than she had expected, was reluctant to let Valentina go. The night before the transformation, Valentina gathered with her friends for a small celebration. They shared stories, laughter, and a few tears as they prepared to say goodbye to their female identities, at least for now. "I never thought I'd say this," one of her friends admitted, "but I'm going to miss being a girl." Valentina nodded in agreement. "I know what you mean. It's become such a big part of who we are." Connor, who had already gone through the cycle once before, offered a reassuring smile. "Remember, it's not goodbye forever. Valentina will always be a part of you, just like your male self is always a part of you when you're like this. It's all you, just different facets of who you are." As Valentina prepared for bed that night, she took one last long look at herself in the mirror. She studied the soft waves of her brown hair, the curve of her cheek, the way the burgundy pajamas draped over her figure. She wanted to memorize every detail, to carry this image of herself into the future. The next morning, as Dawson emerged from the transformation center, he felt like he was waking up from a vivid dream. His body felt simultaneously familiar and strange, the absence of certain curves and the presence of others catching him off guard. As he made his way across campus, now clad in the male uniform of navy slacks and a crisp white shirt, he found himself hyper-aware of how differently people interacted with him. The subtle differences in how people made eye contact, the amount of personal space they gave him, the tone of their voices, all things he never would have noticed before his time as Valentina. In the weeks that followed, Dawson found himself integrating the lessons he'd learned as Valentina into his life as a male student. He was more attuned to the experiences of his female classmates, more aware of the subtle dynamics at play in social situations. He found himself speaking up more often in discussions about gender and equality, drawing on his first-hand experiences to provide unique insights. As the academic year drew to a close, Dawson sat in the grand auditorium with his fellow students, listening to Professor Harrington deliver the closing address. "When we embarked on this experiment," the professor said, her voice ringing out across the hall, "we hoped to challenge your perceptions, to broaden your understanding of gender and identity. But you have exceeded our wildest expectations. You have not just adapted to this program. You have embraced it, grown from it, and used it to effect real change, both within yourselves and in the world around you." Dawson felt a swell of emotion as he listened to the professor's words. He thought about the journey he'd been on, from the terrified new student who first learned about the program to the confident, empathetic person he'd become. As the applause died down and students began to file out of the auditorium, Dawson felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Connor standing there, a knowing smile on his face. "So," Connor said, "ready to do it all again next year?" Dawson grinned, feeling a flutter of excitement in his chest. "You know what? I can't wait." As they walked out into the bright summer sunshine, Dawson knew that his life had been irrevocably changed by his experiences at Westbrook Academy. He had gained not just an education, but a profound understanding of himself and others. And as he looked towards the future, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the unique perspectives he'd gained and the unwavering support of the friends he'd made along the way. The summer break flew by in a blur of family gatherings, part-time jobs, and preparation for the upcoming school year. Dawson found himself eagerly anticipating his return to Westbrook Academy, not just for the academic challenges that awaited him, but for the opportunity to once again step into Valentina's shoes. As he packed his bags for the new semester, Dawson carefully tucked away a few mementos from his time as Valentina, a tube of her favorite lipstick, a delicate bracelet, a photograph of him and his friends all dressed up for a school dance. These items served as tangible reminders of the person he had been and would become again. The night before departing for school, Dawson sat down with his parents, who had been supportive if somewhat bewildered by the school's unique program. His mother reached out and squeezed his hand. "Are you sure you're okay with all this, honey?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "It's not too late to transfer to a different school if you're uncomfortable." Dawson shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "I'm more than okay, Mom. I know it's hard to understand, but this experience, it's changing me for the better. I'm learning things about myself and the world that I never would have otherwise." His father nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, son, when you first told us about this program, I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. But seeing how you've grown, how much more confident and empathetic you've become, well, I can't argue with results." The next day, as Dawson stepped onto the familiar grounds of Westbrook Academy, he felt a sense of homecoming. The Gothic buildings, the sprawling oak trees, the meticulously manicured lawns. It all felt right, like he was exactly where he was meant to be. As he made his way to the administration building to check in, he spotted Connor heading in the same direction. They greeted each other with warm hugs and excited chatter about the upcoming year. "Ready for round 2? Connor asked, with a grin. Dawson nodded, feeling a flutter of anticipation in his stomach.
More than ready. I've been thinking about Valentina all summer.
As they entered the building, they were greeted by a flurry of activity. New students were being oriented, returning students were catching up with friends, and the air was buzzing with excitement for the new academic year. Professor Harrington spotted them from across the lobby and made her way over, a warm smile on her face. Dawson, Connor, welcome back. I hope you're both ready for another transformative year. Absolutely, Professor, Dawson replied enthusiastically. I can't wait to see what new insights this year brings. The professor's smile widened. I'm glad to hear it. In fact, I was hoping to speak with both of you. We're implementing some new aspects to the program this year, and I'd love to get your input as experienced participants. Intrigued, Dawson and Connor followed Professor Harrington to her office. As they settled into the comfortable leather chairs across from her desk, the professor began to outline the new initiatives. We've decided to introduce a mentorship program for local high schools, she explained. We want to share the lessons we've learned here at Westbrook with a wider audience. The goal is to promote understanding and empathy among young people who might not have the opportunity to participate in a program like ours. Dawson leaned forward, his interest piqued. That sounds amazing, Professor. How would it work? We're looking for volunteers from our student body to visit these schools, share their experiences, and lead workshops on gender identity and empathy. Given your eloquence and passion for the program, I thought you both might be interested in participating. Connor and Dawson exchanged excited glances. Count us in, Connor said, without hesitation. As they left the professor's office, their heads spinning with ideas for the mentorship program, Dawson felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about his personal growth anymore. It was about using what he'd learned to make a real difference in the world. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity as Dawson prepared for his transformation back into Valentina. This time, the process felt less daunting and more like stepping into a cherished role. As he sat in the transformation center, watching his reflection change in the mirror, he felt a sense of completeness, as if a missing piece of himself was sliding back into place. When Valentina emerged, resplendent in her burgundy blazer and gray skirt, she felt ready to take on the world. Her brown hair, now styled into elegant waves, framed her face perfectly, and she walked with a confidence that came from experience and self-assurance. As she made her way to her first class of the semester, Valentina couldn't help but notice the new crop of transformed students, looking just as nervous and unsure as she had felt a year ago. She made a mental note to reach out to them, to offer the same kind of support and guidance that had been so crucial to her own journey. In class, Valentina found herself more engaged than ever before. She participated in discussions with enthusiasm, drawing on her unique perspective to offer insights that bridged the gap between male and female experiences. Her professors noted her growth, often calling on her to share her thoughts with the class. Outside of class, Valentina threw herself into extracurricular activities. She joined the debate team, using her newfound confidence and articulation skills to great effect. She also became more involved in the school's arts programs, finding that her time as Valentina had awakened a creative side she hadn't known she possessed. But it was the mentorship program that truly ignited Valentina's passion. Every other weekend, she and a group of fellow Westbrook students would visit local high schools, leading workshops and discussions on gender identity, empathy, and inclusion. At first, the high school students were skeptical, even hostile at times. But as Valentina shared her story, speaking honestly about her fears, her struggles, and her ultimate growth, she saw a change come over her audience. Walls began to crumble, minds began to open, and conversations started to flow. After one particularly successful workshop, a young student approached Valentina, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I've never felt like I fit in," the student confessed. "But listening to you, for the first time, I feel like someone understands. Like, maybe it's okay to be different." Valentina felt a lump form in her throat as she pulled the student into a gentle hug. "It's more than okay," she whispered. "It's beautiful. Your uniqueness is what makes you special." As the semester progressed, Valentina found herself growing in ways she never expected. She became a confidant for many of her fellow students, offering advice and support as they navigated their own transformations. She discovered a talent for mediating conflicts, often being called upon to help resolve disputes between students struggling with identity issues. One evening, as Valentina was studying in the library, she overheard a heated argument between two students, one currently presenting as male, the other as female. Curious, she moved closer to listen. "You don't understand what it's like," the female presenting student was saying, her voice tight with frustration. "You've never had to deal with the constant attention, the way people talk over you, the feeling of not being taken seriously." The male presenting student scoffed. "Oh, please. You act like being a guy is so easy. We have our own set of pressures and expectations to deal with." Valentina took a deep breath and approached the pair. "Hey," she said gently. "Mind if I join this conversation?" Both students looked at her warily, but nodded. Valentina pulled up a chair and sat down. "You're both right," she began. "And you're both wrong. The truth is, neither of you can fully understand the other's experience. At least not yet. But that's the beauty of this program. In a few months, you'll have the chance to walk in each other's shoes. And when you do, I promise you'll gain a whole new perspective." The two students looked at each other, the anger in their eyes slowly fading to curiosity. "The key," Valentina continued, "is to approach this experience with an open mind and heart. Don't just go through the motions. Really try to understand what it's like to live as someone else. The challenges, the joys, the little things you never even thought about before. That's where the real learning happens." As she spoke, Valentina could see the tension dissipating. By the time she finished, the two students were nodding in agreement, the earlier argument forgotten. "Thanks, Valentina," the female presenting student said, with a small smile. "I guess we both have a lot to learn." As the semester drew to a close, Valentina found herself feeling a mix of emotions. There was pride in all she had accomplished, excitement for the future, and a twinge of sadness at the thought of saying goodbye to this aspect of herself, at least for now. On the last day of classes, Professor Harrington called Valentina into her office. As Valentina settled into the now familiar leather chair, the professor regarded her with a warm smile. "Valentina," she began, "I wanted to personally thank you for your extraordinary contributions this semester. Your work with the mentorship program has been nothing short of transformative. You've touched so many lives, both here at Westbrook and in the wider community." Valentina felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "Thank you, Professor. But really, I'm just paying forward the support and understanding I received when I first arrived here." Professor Harrington nodded.
And that's exactly why you've been so effective. Your authenticity, your empathy, they shine through in everything you do, which is why I'd like to offer you a special opportunity for next year.
Valentina leaned forward, intrigued. "What kind of opportunity?"
"We're considering expanding our program to include a study abroad component."
the professor explained. We'd like to partner with universities in other countries to see how our approach to gender fluidity might work in different cultural contexts, and we'd like you to be one of our student ambassadors. Valentina's eyes widened in surprise and excitement. Professor, that's incredible. I'd be honored. As she left the professor's office, her mind buzzing with possibilities, Valentina felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had come so far from the scared, confused Dawson who had first arrived at Westbrook Academy. Now, she was poised to take the lessons she'd learned and share them with the world. The next morning, as Valentina prepared for her transformation back into Dawson, she took one last long look at herself in the mirror. She saw strength in her eyes, confidence in her posture, and a deep well of empathy in her heart. In this poignant conclusion, Dawson's journey of self-discovery reaches a significant milestone as he embraces the transformative experiences that have shaped his identity. After a year of extraordinary growth and exploration at Westbrook Academy, he transcends gender boundaries by stepping out of the Transformation Center, reclaiming his identity as Dawson while carrying within him the essence of Valentina. The story ends with Dawson acknowledging the integration of these two personas, understanding that his experiences as Valentina and the lessons learned are now integral to who he is. With a newfound sense of wholeness, he walks towards the gates of the academy, symbolizing both the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter. The summer sun's warmth mirrors the internal glow of confidence and self-acceptance he now possesses. Collegamenti. Looking back at the school, Dawson acknowledges the pivotal role it played in his evolution, fostering not only his academic growth, but also enabling him to navigate the complexities of identity and empathy through transformative experiences. As he leaves, he does so with the certainty that the coming autumn will bring fresh challenges, opportunities for further transformation, and the chance to continue making an impact on the world around him. This ending signifies a continuation of personal growth, where Dawson, now equipped with a profound self-awareness, strides forward, ready to take on life's adventures, with both Valentina's strength and his own unique identity as guiding lights in this next phase of his journey. The evolution of Dawson's character throughout the story underscores the notion that change is constant, and embracing one's multifaceted nature can lead to a more profound and authentic existence.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!